Good morning. Turn your Bible to Mark chapter 5. Me and Brother TJ spent a lot of time together with our young people, and he opened up to Mark 5, and I was like, here we go. And he talked about two stories, and there's three. And thankfully, I was planning to talk about the third one, so you won't get a repeat message. But God's funny. He really is. As soon as he did that, I'm like, well, I guess we did something right. But we're going to look here at verse number 21. It says, when Jesus passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, my little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. And so we see here, Jesus has just done the miracle of the maniac, and he's coming through, and Jairus is here, and he knows, he's heard stories about what Jesus has done. And he's like, I need Jesus now. He's like, my 12-year-old daughter's dying, and I need something to happen. And so Jesus is coming. I can imagine as a dad, he gets pretty excited. Jesus begins to follow him, and he's going to go to his house. But then again, this lady touches him. And Jesus takes a pause in his journey, and Jairus is probably like, okay, this is good for her, but I know where he's coming. But then when you pick up, right after this woman's healed, you see in verse number 35, it says, while he yet spake, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? And I was reading this, I've been reading in the book of Mark, and I was like, this has to be a terrible moment for Jairus. I'm sure he's emotional. His daughter's dying. He goes to Jesus, and Jesus says, I'm coming with you. I'm coming to your house. So he's real excited. He knows what that means. Jesus is coming to heal her, coming to do the miracle that he desperately needs. And he takes a pause, helps somebody else. And I'm sure Jairus is okay with that. But then at that moment, someone comes, your daughter's dead. Don't even worry about it. Don't bring Jesus here. There's no point. And I was reading and I was like, this has to be the worst day in this man's life. He was so close to the miracle that he needed. And Jesus was coming, but it was too late. We know it wasn't too late. But in Jairus' position, he has to just be crushed at what he has just heard. His servant comes. Don't even bother the master. Don't trouble him any further. And Jesus heard the word that was spoken, and he said unto the ruler of the synagogue, be not afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that weep and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel and them that were with him, and entereth in where the damsel was lying. And so Jesus comes in and he says, listen, don't be afraid. I know what this sounds like. You asked me to come. I said I would come, and I took a break. And I helped somebody else, and now she's dead. He's like, but don't be afraid. I'm coming. And he continued to go, and he continued to make this journey. It's interesting. He doesn't let everyone follow him. He got off the boat, and people were following him. He heals the lady, and people are all around him. And now he says, don't follow me. And he takes a smaller group, and he goes to Jairus' house. And we know that he gets there and says, don't be afraid, she's just sleeping. And people are literally laughing at Jesus. And he says, listen, I'm going to take mom and dad, and we're going to go into this room, and you're going to see something like you've never seen. And it says that he goes in and says, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat. You know, I'm just going to be real short here, but when I was reading this, I was like, this guy Jairus really went through it. It went from terrible day, my daughter's going to die, great day, Jesus is coming. Terrible day, she died. Great day, Jesus raised her. But what an emotional roller coaster. I can't imagine. Some of you that are real emotional people, you would have been having like panic attacks. You would have been done. You'd be like, I can't do this. But I was thinking about Jairus' perspective. And of all the things that he's heard, the thing that he witnessed, Jesus is following him to his house when he stops to heal this lady. And he looks and says, yes, I'm glad she got what she needed, but I didn't get what I needed. And he needed something. And there was a weight in his life. And he's like, God, you didn't do it for me. And I'm glad for her. And I'm glad for the miracles that I'm seeing. But God, I need you. And I need something. And he was probably broken, knowing he wasn't getting what he needed. And he's there and everyone's rejoicing, as they should be. A maniac had the demons cast out and he's now normal. And a lady with an issue of blood is now healed. But his daughter's dead. And nothing can change that. And as great as it may have been for everybody watching, there's a man with a deep hurt. And he was expecting something and he didn't get it. And I'm reading this and I'm like, I can't imagine. And we know that God comes through for him, but when I'm reading this, God's just speaking to me and he's like, listen, there are things going on, and I know there's people here, and you've seen these great stories, you've seen these great testimonies of how God has come through for people, and he's done these miraculous things and stepped in when they needed him. But you're like, God, I need you. And that's Jairus. God, I need you. It's my daughter, and she's dying, and now she's dead. What am I supposed to do? And I'm just thankful that we serve a God that although it doesn't always make sense, he knows exactly what we need. And yes, how great of a miracle it would have been for him to heal a sick girl. But instead, he raises her from the dead. That's a little bit of a better story. I mean, healing someone that's sick is impressive, but raising her from the dead, that's unheard of. That doesn't happen. And so it doesn't make sense to Jairus, and he's in a place of hurt, and he's in a place of, God, why? Why are you helping them, and why are you helping them, and why are you helping? But I'm still here, not getting what I need. And when I was reading this, I just felt that God was telling me, listen, no matter what you are going through, I know. Jesus was aware. He knew what he was doing. Jairus didn't. And Jesus didn't tell him, all right, listen, I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to heal her. Your daughter's going to die, and I'm going to raise her. He didn't know that. He's standing there like, what in the world just happened? But we know, reading the story, that it was all part of the plan. And there may be people here today, and I'm sure there are, and you're looking around and you're like, I see God working there. And I see God working there. And I see God working there. But let me tell you, if we continue to have faith, God is working for you. And he wants to come in and deliver a miracle for you. And when I'm looking at this story, I'm like, everyone's got a great story, but Jairus' story is now better. And you know what? I also thought all of these are public. It's out on the street. It's out walking. Tons of people, everybody seeing it. This is a very private, special moment between Jairus and Jesus. Just a couple people. Jesus is in his house. It's personal. God knows exactly what you need. And Jairus, as much as he went through a tough day, I believe the miracle that he experienced was more special than anybody else. The lady with the issue of blood, she was healed, but she's just out there on the street in a big group. And everybody's excited, but Jairus has Jesus in his house. And there's times where things don't make sense. And there's times where we feel like things aren't going the way they're supposed to go, but we can be confident that God is working his plan. And even greater than just a healing, there's a resurrection. And there's a personal touch. And God was coming, and it wasn't what the lady with the issue of blood needed. That's not what Jairus got, but he got what he needed. And he got his daughter, she was raised. And he got a personal interaction with Jesus. And I just want us to look and to understand that God is there. And as much as we may be concerned, and as much as we may look and say, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't fit with what I want, and I understand that you can rejoice for others, but right now I need something. God will give it to you. He'll give it to you in his time and in his way. He will come to your house, and he wants to be close to you, and he wants to deliver for you. And I'm just thankful that we have a God that in our personal unique situations he wants to deliver. And whether that be public like the one with the issue of blood, or whether it be private like Jairus' daughter, whether it just come right when you ask, the woman touched the clothes, and as soon as she reached out, she was healed. Or if it's a process of God working on you and trying your faith. But if we keep faith, he's going to work. And I'm thankful that we have a good God, and he's just as good to Jairus as he was to the one with the issue of blood. And just as good to Jairus as the maniac of Gadara. They've all experienced the miracle of God, but they did it in their own way. And I'm thankful that God works in each of our lives. And so as we go about life, I know it's easy to look and say, well, this is what he's doing. But he's not doing it for me. And I'm sure you've been there, and we've all been there. But God's there. And he tells me, says, hey, don't be afraid, just believe. God has our best intentions in mind. And Jairus was probably questioning what God was doing. Why? Why would you pause for this lady knowing my daughter's going to die? Why? But in the end, he kept faith. And he took him. And what a miracle, this girl. He says, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked. For she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. Yeah, I bet they were. I bet they were. He walks in and says, she's not dead, she's sleeping. They laugh. He says, come here, mom and dad, come here. And walks in and says, get up. And she sits up. She's dead. She was dead when Jairus was on the road next to the lady with the issue of blood. She's been dead. It's not like she just died 5 minutes. No, they had to journey to the house. And she sits up. And Jesus says, I love this. Get her some food. Girl's got to eat. Get her some food. But you know what? Everything's fine. And just shortly before, Jairus' life is falling apart. And he's crushed because he's just lost his daughter. And it doesn't make sense why God wouldn't have healed her in his time. But in God's time, he came and he worked. And you may be sitting thinking, I need something now, but let me tell you, just remain faithful to God. Stay true to his word, and he's coming to work in your life. He wants to do that work, but it's in his time. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure you're sitting here, and you're like, I want it now, and I'm sure Jairus wanted it. But you know what? Because he waited, there was something more special that came. It wasn't just a healing, it was a resurrection. And it wasn't just a public thing, it was a private setting with a one-on-one relationship with God where he stepped in and did it on a personal level. And that's what I want. I want something personal. As great as it is to have public experiences with God, I want something private. I want something in my house and in my life that I can look to. And though the process, the journey of getting there was not fun, not something we would sign up for, God's plan always works out. And so if you're in a difficult time, stay faithful. Believe. Don't be afraid. God's coming, and he wants to work if we will just remain faithful. And so I'm thankful for God. I'm thankful for how he works. It doesn't always make sense, but I'm thankful that he has our best interests at heart and that he is working for us.